Are you a brand new worship leader, possibly an amateur worship leader, wanting to learn a little bit more about how to lead worship effectively? We learned a couple things so you don't have to, coming up on this episode. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of another worship podcast. With me, as usual, here we go again. Danny Boy in the hot seat, Daniel Presley.
What's up?
How you doing?
Good. How you doing, man?
We filmed all these episodes in one day, so I feel like I've asked you how you're doing 4 times in a row.
And we're still
just
the same.
We're still good. We're chill.
Man.
Today we're going to be discussing advice that we kind of learned. So times that we've failed and learned from those failures. So you don't have to fail and learn from your failures. You can just learn from our failures. So today we're going to be talking about a couple things. One, we're going to be sharing some advice, firsthand experiences from our time leading worship here at Rockfish Church. And we're also going to be talking about how to handle criticism and how to handle failed expectations, because no one warned us about that. You know, they told us everything was going to be perfect when we get into the real world of worship. But here we are. Things ain't perfect. We're learning a lot.
That was like, yeah, you'll run into a few mishaps, but
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what you meant.
A few?
Yeah.
A few. Okay. Yeah. You're a liar. And now you're a sinner. The question I get all the time is, and if you're asking me this, you're in the wrong, I don't know what's going on in your world, but if you ask me, how do you become a better worship leader? Bruh, how do you become better at worshiping? How do you get better at praying? How do you get better at X, Y, and Z? Have you ever had anyone come up to you and go, how do you get better at playing guitar? How do you respond to someone that says that? How do you get better at playing an instrument? How do you get better at doing X? How would you respond?
Definitely 1, practice, and 2, just watching other people. And I think you could have the same answer when it comes to how can you have a better prayer life, a better worship life. Because 1, you practice. You know, you and I were joking about it before we started filming, is just do it. But when you look at it and you really break it down to something so simple, you just do it. It's not going to be easy, but you just do it. And yeah, you can watch others for inspiration. Again, you don't copy and paste, but it's okay to get, inspiration from others.
Like as far as how to be better at worship, you worship. How you get better at praying, like in public specifically, you pray in public. You pray, you practice, you put it into practice. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's like, how did you get so good at playing drums? Oh, I just woke up one day and I just held some sticks and I just went for it.
Got good.
Yeah, first try. One take wonder.
Yeah.
No, it had nothing to do with that. It was me getting up saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this into practice. And I got better at drums, just like worship leading. I'm going to get better at leading people into worship. And that's exactly what I did. Same thing with songwriting, how you get so good, not to toot my own horn. I have a lot to learn. Okay. Making that very clear. Yeah. I'm definitely not the best in any of these, but I'm getting better because I say it.
Practiced.
Boom.
You kept doing it.
Develop a personal prayer life, develop a personal worship life. And, if it's, something as simple as learning an instrument, develop or create time to sit down and practice. Yeah. Create time to sit down and worship. Create time to sit down and pray. It's as simple as that, right?
Exactly.
You got anything else to say on that?
No, that's good.
That's pretty good. Now, handling criticism and failed expectations. How to handle failed expectations and criticism. For example, if I'm just a regular congregant and you're leading worship, you have your A team up there, and I come up to you and I go, hey, I kind of noticed, this was going on, and I heard a couple bad notes, and I'm just literally criticizing everything that just happened that you put 110% of your willpower into. How would you handle that?
So this might sound horrible. The first thing that came to my mind is something my dad has always told me growing up. And he says, if someone ever tells you something, first thing you think of is you need to ask yourself, consider the source. So yeah, you could consider the source. However, if it is someone that you really do trust, someone that has a lot of value and you value their opinion, definitely, sure, we talked about egos, one of these previous episodes. It's going to hit your ego a little bit, especially if it's coming from, like, say, your pastor or somebody above you. Yeah, that's going to sting. But take it in, let it mold you, let your failures mold you. I've run into some, you've run into some, or failed expectations, especially if it's a special event and it doesn't quite go the way you wanted it to go. Yeah, you're going to be kicking yourself a little bit.
Because as human beings, we want to lash out, and I want to be like, well, who the heck are you?
Yeah.
Coming in here and telling me how to, but as leaders, we can't do that, obviously. So we have to really, we have to put our fists away, and kind of suck in our pride. And just like you said, suck in our ego and just kind of absorb everything. Instead of taking it as criticism, take it as notes that you can do better later.
What if they're right?
What if they're right?
That's one of the things I picked up from your dad as well. He said there's kind of a conflict that I was having with someone on the youth band, actually. And this person came to your dad, since he was the director of ministry at the time, was like, hey, this was said to me. And he said that he asked them, well, was what they said true?
And was it?
And it was. And we worked it out. I was like, hey, I wasn't trying, I was just trying to joke with the guy. Hey, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be offensive. However, what I say all that to say, asking that question, is what they're saying true? Are they right? It's something to take into consideration. Yeah, you're going to be like you said, why are you telling me this? Who are you to criticize my job? You can't even sing. You're not even on this worship team.
Right.
Take a hike.
Hogwash.
Yeah.
Can I say that on the podcast? Can I say hogwash? Can I say that word?
But take into consideration, is it true? Are they right?
That's good. I think that's a really good piece of advice for everyone watching, to not take it as criticism, like we said, but take it as like a note just to do better next time. If one person noticed it, more than likely the rest of them are noticing it. So that might eliminate some distractions. If it's distracting to someone, perhaps it could be distracting to other people. Just saying, some people are different.
Things to take in consideration.
Now, some people might be looking for that kind of thing, other than worshiping and just, being in the moment with the Lord. They might just be there to criticize and critique little things.
Pastor Tony always says, if you're looking for something,
you will find it.
Yes, exactly. You're going to find exactly what you're looking for at some point or in some shape or form.
That's true. So this podcast topic is on advice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with you. What is some of the best, let's do this. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received, whether it's from a worship leader or a pastor or your mom or your grandma? What's the best piece of worship related or leadership related advice, worship leader related advice that you've ever received? Do you have anything?
And it's hard to choose because I've had so many, you've given me some good tips. Past worship leaders here at Rockfish, my mom, my professor at the time of filming this podcast. I'm currently in college for worship leading.
How old are you, Daniel?
I'm 21.
There you go. I'm 20. Well, I'm about to be 28. Oh, I'm old. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. And so at the time of filming this, I'm getting ready to wrap up college, and the professor that I report to, he oversees the worship program. He's given me some amazing advice. However, the best advice that I received is someone I have never met. And it is someone who plays for Bethel Music. His name is David Funk.
Oh, love that guy.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing. Open up my heart.
Yeah, man. Just an amazing worship leader. I actually really do look up to him.
Very anointed.
And it was a video where it was 20 questions with him. And at the end, if I remember correctly, he was asked what's the best piece of advice he could give someone. And he said, don't take yourself too seriously. And yes, obviously what we do is a serious job. However, not everything is that serious.
We're
okay.
playing music, man.
It's
mean,
okay.
Come on.
Yeah, it's okay to have fun. It's okay to cut up. I mean, plenty of times where I lead at Anderson Creek, it is not uncommon for some sort of technical issue to happen.
There's joy in the Lord, man.
Exactly.
Everything you do, be happy doing it.
And there have been plenty of times where I had to kind of like banter around with some of the worship team members just to kind of like either stall or try to figure out the issue. It happened a couple of weeks ago where our mics weren't coming through the house, and I looked over at our team members. I'm like, hey, is your mic working? Then eventually what I did to kick off the service, I just stood at the end of the stage and I was like, hey guys, we're going to play 2 new songs today,
Without a microphone?
Yeah. I just stood at the edge of the stage and I was like, hey guys, we're going to play, 2 songs. One is a song that, really means a lot. It's really worship together. One is our other theme song for this month. It's just, you got to make the most out of the situation and just laugh about it.
Do your best. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's really,
now looking back,
if you look at it, it's funny.
Looking back on it now, it's like, oh, okay, that was kind of funny. But when you're in the middle of it, I can see how that would totally be just super frustrating to you.
Like at Rayford, in my mind, or probably in your mind, if something like that happened at Rayford, it'd be like, oh,
train wreck. Yeah.
And your whole day is going to be ruined.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you think about it, you know what? Not everything down here is perfect.
We're okay.
It's
people, again, goes back to the 3 things. Did you worship? Did your team worship? And did everyone else worship in the congregation? If you fill those out, then you had a good day.
Yeah.
Regardless of the technical issues, maybe the tech team wasn't necessarily on their A game or whatever, but as long as you worshiped and you did what the point of worship is to worship God in the first place, then call it a success. That's good. So the biggest piece of advice that I've ever gotten, and it sort of goes back to what we were talking about as, being viewed as leaders, especially when you're leading a worship team, super easy to get in your head and think that you're responsible for everything. And in a sense you are, you're responsible for the songs that you picked, and you're responsible for the team, but you're not responsible for their preparedness. I think there's a better word that I could use for that. You're not responsible for preparation,
their personal preparation.
Right. So that's something that they have to do and choose to do outside of the church by themselves. So if anyone here, if anyone listening, if you have an off day and it's simply because your team wasn't or didn't sound the best, wasn't on their A game, don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah.
Okay. More than likely, you just need to have a side chat. Say, hey, how's your practice life going? Are you practicing? Are you looking at the chord charts? And even before that, you need to make sure that you're providing all of the practice materials for them to look at and go over in the first place.
And on top of that, when you go to have that conversation, think about the person that it is.
Yes.
Because it could be someone where they might have a track record of not having the best. Obviously, what we do isn't a performance, but their performance. They may not have the best performance. So take that into consideration. Or is it a person where most of the time they're on their A game, and this time they just weren't on their A game?
Yeah.
And so when you take that into consideration, you know how to approach the situation.
You kind of touched on that a little bit. It's the person, think about the person. If they're really shy and timid and you go with a direct approach, like, hey, I noticed that you're not on your A game and you're kind of being a little harsh, they're going to shut down.
Oh yeah.
Now, if it's a person like, for example, shout out to Kevin Q, if you're watching this, if you're listening.
Worship coordinator for Aberdeen.
Hey,
actually, yeah.
We're in your hood right now, bro. If it's someone like that, who Kevin, he's a very broad, masculine, testosterone
Yeah,
infused.
he's gonna shoot straight
military,
and he wants you to shoot straight with him as well.
Yeah. If it's someone like that, you can absolutely just shoot straight with them, but just be mindful of who it is that you're bringing on the sideline.
Yep.
If it's someone who's shy, who's very sweet, very timid, be gentle. But if it's someone who, like, if it's your friend or a bro or someone in the military, they can probably handle a little more of a direct approach. Yep. So that's a big piece of advice that you can just put in your pocket, Jack, as we like to say. The best piece of it, the best ever, and it's so hard to apply this, man. I kid you not. The best piece of advice I ever got was, regardless of any circumstance, regardless of the scenario you're in, and you know I'm guilty of this, never, ever, ever let your team or anyone around you see you upset.
Yep.
Never express how angry you are in front of the team, in front of the congregation, in front of anybody. If you need to take a couple minutes and go in your office or go in the bathroom, shut the stall, and just kind of, have a heart-to-heart with God, like, God, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but please, I'm asking for your peace and your grace in the matter, as I am.
There have been times where I've had to do that.
Yeah. Can you name one time where you had to kind of stand back and kind of do like a quick heart check, like, okay, why am I so upset right now? And how can I bring peace to my soul?
The first Easter set that I led at Anderson Creek, I was putting a lot of stock. I was having really high expectations. I wanted everything to be on time. I wanted to be on time. And when it seemed like things were not working as well as I wanted them to go, especially in the rehearsal, I felt myself really getting low on patience.
Mm-hmm.
And I stepped outside and stood under the front porch out at Anderson Creek and just prayed real quick, and I just
breathe.
Yeah. And plenty of times when I was leading the youth band, because when I was leading that, I was friends with a lot of the people on the team. And so it's easy for me to kind of look at it as so-and-so my friend instead of so-and-so the leader or so-and-so team member.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are times where I'm like, I'm about to light this person up.
Mm.
But it's like, no, we're in I look at it as like, professional setting right now. So we have to put that aside. How would you deal with this if it were somebody else and not your friend or somebody?
Or how would, you used David Funk earlier.
Mm-hmm.
How would David Funk
Mm-hmm.
respond in this situation?
Yeah.
Or you could even put your pastor, how would Pastor Tony?
And I think about that all the time, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I think that just about wraps everything up here.
I do want to ask you this though, because
Okay.
I really wanted us to touch on this.
Okay.
Real quickly, what piece of advice would you give just as yourself? Because we touched on, what piece of advice have we received? What piece of advice would you give personally in your experience?
Piece of advice: loving people goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And people are listening like, oh my gosh, that's so cliche. But literally, the difference between hostility on the team, you should never have hostility on your worship team.
Yeah.
It's all about the heart. If your heart's not right, you don't need to be on that stage because you're leading people. But, loving people in comparison to having, conflict with someone on the team, loving them just is so much better, and it gets you a lot further.
Mm-hmm.
If you're around people and you're playing with people that you genuinely love as people, not as tools for a product that you want to achieve, but if you love the people that you're around, they will love you. Hopefully they will love you back.
Mm-hmm.
And thusly you create not only unity, but you create the congregation will be able to pick up on your team and your dynamics with the team. So the more you love people, the further you're going to get in the ministry, for sure.
Especially because you mentioned congregation picking up on the dynamic of your team and especially you as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
At our church, I know a lot of like the bigger churches, they keep their doors shut, whether it's the foyer doors or the worship center doors, they keep their doors shut during rehearsal. That is not the case at any of our campuses at Rockfish.
Mm-hmm.
Our doors are open, and depending on how long our rehearsal is going, you already got a few people kind of collecting in and getting their seats and whatnot, or they're in the foyer. And so you're on display for everybody to see.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if the rehearsal's not going well,
and you're showing your butt,
mm-hmm.
people are going to see how you actually are without all the smoke and mirrors and the fog and all that stuff. So I mean, I think about that all the time. Actually, it's like, okay, keep your cool. Even if rehearsal's not going great, it's like, okay, just keep your patience.
Yeah.
Keep your cool. Don't say anything that's going to get you canceled.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Even like say a night of worship rehearsal where it's just us and maybe a couple of tech team members and nobody's there. Still, you're working with people. You're working with volunteers. Even if your worship team is a completely paid worship team, come on, you gotta love people.
Yeah, just love the people that you're around, and that'll get you so far.
It's not like it's in the Bible or something.
Love God, love people.
Yeah,
rings a bell.
Definitely. If I were to give advice, because this is something that I definitely want to share with people out there, and it's a saying that I came up with even before I started worship leading. This was as a guitarist on the worship team. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need to be reminded you are not as good as you think you are. Because in my playing, there were times where some of the guys that were on the worship team at the time, they were like, hey, you should probably really fix your tone, or hey, your tone was kind of out of whack tonight, or work on this. Or even if my playing wasn't that good and I know that and I recognize it, or even just in any other situation, like we've been at the studio in Wake Forest. Shout out to Aaron and Richard at Pure Mix.
Richard, MC Corco.
We've been up there, and the studio, when you're connected to those really nice mics that pick up everything, that humbles you. And every time I'm there, especially this week, I was humbled. And it's one of those things, sometimes you need to be reminded you're not as good as you think you are. And it brings you from up here, because
takes that ego.
You start thinking, man, I'm really good. I'm a good vocalist. Man, I'm really good with my timing, or I'm a good musician.
I'm a professional.
Until you got to really go piece by piece, or you got to do
until you hear yourself coming out of the monitors.
Yeah, and take after take after take. It's like, oh yeah. It's like, all right. Did I practice? Or you may have practiced, but I feel your performance isn't as good as you thought it is.
I feel like in those moments, God uses those moments to just kind of deflate your head a little bit. It's like your head can get like Jimmy Neutron size, and God's like, all right. I know you're going to hate this, but it's going to be good for you. I promise.
And it's one of those things where you don't do it intentionally. Like, you have plenty of people who know that they're the cheese.
Yeah.
And they walk around thinking, yeah, I'm all this in a bag of chips. For me and you, we don't think that way.
I don't.
But our heads get a little bit bigger. We don't know it.
Yeah. Especially when you're responsible for X amount of people and X amount of congregants that come, that can really get to your head as well. It's not just like, people looking at you or the position that you're in the front of the stage holding a guitar singing every song. It's also like just kind of it can really just do a toll on your ego, everything in general. So that's good. I'm glad that you touched on that. Good podcast, bro.
Yeah, good stuff.
Good stuff.
We definitely probably went way over, but that was
way over. Okay, we're wrapping up now.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for watching this episode of another worship podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you're on YouTube, bell, like button, subscribe if you want to. We're just a bunch of goofballs. Yeah. We have some, if you're watching this on the Rockfish, I don't know where this is being posted. I think Rockfish Worship.
Who knows, man?
I don't know. But if it's on Rockfish Worship, check out our YouTube channel. Just check out all the music videos we put out. And if you like what you see, come join us live. It's a good time.
Oh, yeah.
If you're watching this or listening to this on any other platform or device, share it with a friend. Let's grow together. Sound good?
Yeah. Let's
grow together. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great rest of your day. See you later. God bless. We learned a couple things so you don't have to, coming up on this episode. What you think about that, Danny boy?
That was good.